Let's talk about the executive branch, which you control. Back in 1964, we looked it up, Pew study, 76% of the American people believe that most of the time, almost always, the federal government did the right thing. Now it's down to less than 20%. The trust question, the commitments you made before the rollout with health care. What is it? What is it that's just, it's a serial decline, Mr. President. It keeps going down. I know we had Watergate, we had the Vietnam War, of course, all that together. But what's going to stop and arrest that decline of faith in you doing the right thing, you being honest? I mean, anybody who's president, this skepticism that's out there.
Well, look, the cynicism and the skepticism is deep. And I distinguish between just management of government and the basic blocking and tackling, getting stuff done to help the American people, and then the ability to move big policy changes that are going to help more Americans. When it comes to the management of government, part of the reason people are so skeptical is that when we do things right, they don't get a lot of attention. If we do something that is perceived, at least initially, as a screw-up, it'll be on the nightly news for a week. So let's take the example of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. We got a guy who's been in charge, Craig Fugate, who has managed as many natural disasters over the last 5 years as just about anybody, and has done a flawless job.
So he's really doing a good job.
He is doing,
not like his predecessor.
He is doing a heck of a job. This guy, and that's not just my opinion. That's the opinion of every governor and mayor that works with him, including Republicans. Well, nobody knows who this guy is, and if in fact we go in after Sandy or after the tornadoes in Oklahoma or Missouri, and we're helping a lot of people effectively and quickly, and they're getting what they need, nobody hears about that. That's not something that's reported about. If, on the other hand, you've got an office in Cincinnati, in the IRS office, that I think for bureaucratic reasons is trying to streamline what is a difficult law to interpret about whether nonprofit is actually a political organization, deserves a tax-exempt agency, and they've got a list, and suddenly everybody's outraged.
501c4 is tricky to begin with.
To begin with. And by the way, Chris, I'll point out that there are some so-called progressives and perceived to be liberal commentators who, during that week, just were outraged at the possibility that these folks, had been in the direction of the Democratic Party in some way discriminating against Tea Party folks. And that is what gets news. That's what gets attention. Now, here's what I will say. There are a couple million people working for the federal government. And I remember Bob Gates, my former Secretary of Defense, wonderful public servant, had served under 7 presidents. When I first came in, I asked him, so Bob, you got any advice for me? He says, Mr. President, just understand, you got a lot of people working for you. Somebody somewhere at this very moment is screwing something up. And that's true. And so I have to consistently push on every cabinet secretary, on every single agency, how can we do things better? And we can do things better. Part of what we need to do is reorganize the government, which was designed primarily in 1935 or 45. We could consolidate agencies. We've got to do a much better job, as everybody has learned, buying information technologies. How we make ourselves more customer friendly. Those are all things that we can improve. But the upshot is the government still does a lot of good. And the last point I'll make on this is, we've had a politics, frankly, the entire Republican Party brand since Ronald Reagan has been government's the problem. And if you, day after day, week after week, election after election, are running on that platform, and that permeates our culture, and it's picked up by ordinary citizens who grow skeptical, then it's not surprising that over time, trust in government declines. But as I said in a speech yesterday, the biggest issue that I see out in the horizon is how do we make sure an economy works for everybody and that every one of these young people can get a good job, pursue a career, support a family, not be loaded up by $100,000 worth of debt, actually buy a home. How do we do those things that reduce inequality in our society and broaden opportunity? And government can't solve all of that. And we live in an economy that is global and technological and is changing faster than ever before in history. But government can't stand on the sidelines when we're doing that. And without some faith in our capacity for collective action, those trends are going to get worse. So we've got to, and young people in particular, have to understand government is us. Government's not somebody else. Government's us. We have the capacity to change it. Voters have the capacity to change it. Members of Congress do, as well as the president.
Let's talk about the chief.